Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This week is show we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Sweet Home Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, picking up in the aftermath of Hyuk's announcement last episode, the first floor is safe. Our group with Hyun's group decides to split up. Jaehyun and Jisoo decide to go downstairs. Well, Dusik stays behind with the kids and the woman. I think her name is Miss. It might be pronounced M. It's like I am. What I thought was so interesting about that scene is Dusik is like actually sad to see them go, and he's just kind of like, right, I might as well kind of say goodbye because don't make any promises. Because Jisoo was like, right, the moment we'll get down there, find out if everything really is safe, we'll come back and tell you. But he's like, don't make any promises, because that'd also probably be a hard situation for him too, because the elevators are still out, so he'd have to go down all because they're on the 14th floor, so you have to go down all those stairs like that. So I'm sure he would probably rather just stay in his own room, but he actually does feel kind of bad having to say goodbye to him, because I think there's a part of him that enjoyed having all this company. I mean, it seems like he's been by himself this entire time, but he even turns around when they leave and it's like, wow, it looks like I'm the head of like a kindergarten class now. At least he's not alone. He's got Miss M, but the problem is she's infected. They don't know that. The only people who know are Jisoo, Jaehyun, and Hyun, but they don't really say anything because Hyun's fighting his infection and she seems to fight hers, based on what Jisoo saw. So then I guess it's kind of like, it's as long as she's not like a monster now, that's all that really matters, I guess, in the long run. Which, since we're on that subject there, let's kind of stay there with that situation, because she is enjoying the time being with all of them, and she's preparing food, and we see at one point in time she gets so into it, like the infection takes over, and she starts cutting her own finger. So you're like, right, they're in that house, and like that infection, she was able to fight it off before. But I think it speaks volumes that when she was infected, what are the first things she did? She turned and looked towards the kids. They were part of her infection, because as they learn in this episode, it's all about desires, as I've kind of talked a little bit about before. But this episode, the characters in the show get to learn that, based on a military announcement, that it's driven by human desire. And like every human desires something, but that desire gets contorted and leads to the infection. But we know her desire previously was to protect the children, because it stemmed from her losing her own child. And so I guess that almost having a family situation, like that desire kicked in again and infected her. So later on, Dusik has to go investigate the bathroom when the little girl is like, yeah, she's been in there for like an hour. So he's got his weapon cocked and ready. It's like, because she might be infected. But when he opens the door, you do see like a giant sack, and almost there's like webs. It's not even webs. It feels almost like it looks like it almost has the same like feel and texture of placenta. So it's like, okay, so did she become like a pregnant monster, because her desire is driven by that? So could her monstrous form be representing that, and she's kind of giving birth to a child monster? Because it looked like it was just a giant sack. I don't know if it was really even connected in anything, but it was don't know what that means in a grand scheme of things. Because we learned in this episode too, along with like, desire and everything, there is that golden window where you can still kill a human, because not only things very hard to kill, they do regenerate. Which is also, that was also my question, because like I said, I've only read a little bit of the manhwa. So the thing that got half its head chopped off, will it eventually grow its head back? Even the one that, the eyeball thing, from, was it episode 2? Will that thing ever grow back its head? Because it like after the eyeball portion of the head got cut off, the long extended neck eventually it popped off, and then like the body just walked away. So will it eventually go ahead, since we're talking about the regenerative abilities? What about next door neighbor? She's not dead. Not unless that hulking thing was her transform, but I would assume that was something else entirely. So we still haven't gone back to her since Samwook dealt with her, but he didn't like kill her, because these things are hard to kill, and that it was she was. I don't think she was in that golden window anymore. but they call it the golden hour. It's like when you can still kill the creatures before they fully transform, when they're still human enough to die. And it's also like, yeah, just to kind of keep things safe, you have to burn the bodies. So while our crew is making their way downstairs, all the stuff, well, but when they left Dusic's place and is when they're making their way downstairs, the actual beginning of the episode is picking up where episode 3 had left off, with the mom seeing her daughter murdered, and it's like, should we go out there? The soldier might still be alive, but Hyuk makes the decision like, no, we need to like close down the gate and lock things back up. And just as he's putting stuff in front of it again, like that creature from before punches a hole in the tentacles there, like, and almost hits Hyuk, and it's got his glasses covered in blood. And the mom eventually like beats on his chest because it's like, as I figured last episode, it's like she's going to take all that frustration out on him. I mean, understandably so, because for her it's like, you were the reason why I couldn't get to my child. If you had let me go, I could have saved my child. Like, and I'd even brought it up last episode. Even if I couldn't save my child, at least I could die with my child. We would have at least been together. She wouldn't have had to die alone like that, which she technically didn't because the soldier Suong was with her. But so that's the real shame to that whole situation. And next time we see her, like throughout most of the rest of the episode, she's despondent. Understandable, like her entire world came shattering down. I brought it up previously too, of like, yeah, you just happen to, like, your daughter just happens to show up now. Isn't that a little too weird, a little too coincidental? I wonder, was she actually infected or whatever, and maybe she was being driven by the desire to be reunited with her mom. Maybe there's some element to that. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But even some of the characters bring it up. It's like, right, there's no phone service, so how is it that she just happens to, like, her happen to get like, oh, this is where your daughter is? It's like, it's just a little too convenient. Like beforehand it's like, sure, but just the fact that she would have, you'd be like, oh, she's out there, you find that out just as she's running towards the door. I thought, because last episode I was like, maybe the door opening and all the ruckus her mom was making made her decide to go in that direction, but maybe she was already heading in that direction in the first place. Who knows? Because that also ties into Yi Kyung's situation as well, because her phone rings and she sees that it's her fiance, which we learned about in this episode. The reason why I'm bringing this up, because we know part of the whole process is hallucinations, but once again, it's specifically auditory hallucinations that hasn't really come up to be visuals. The only example I'd used previously was when Hyun was in the hallway trying to avoid the thing with half its head cut off. In the manhwa, he would see it, but even he recognized, like, no, this isn't even a hallucination. It's me being so afraid I'm seeing this thing. So that was purely driven hallucination. It was his subconscious manifesting it because of fear, but I mean, more specifically, his mind manifesting it out of fear rather than hallucination, because they keep stressing the point auditory hallucinations. So I guess that's supposed to more so be about the voices. But to be fair, like, Hyun is seeing stuff too, so it might just, because that's why I keep going back and forth, because they keep stressing auditory hallucinations. So maybe there are visual hallucinations as well because of all the stuff that Hyun is experiencing, and so it makes me go, it has to be more than that. And who knows what Yi Kyung, like what she saw, could have easily just been a hallucination, that it wasn't actually her fiance calling. You have Yeon Yu making her way down, but the door is blocked off. And it's interesting because, well, we already saw she was packing her stuff up. She was going to go probably back downstairs regardless. But, you know, it wasn't even like, she would like seem more irritated than anything when she heard her brother's message over the PA system last episode. But I guess that made her go like, fine, I'll come down, back down and stuff. But that's when Hyun gets knocked off the stairs and over the railing and falls 9 floors. And I was like, well, there's no way he's dead. He's kind of the main character. But I'm like, I guess now that he's infected, it's past that golden hour. Just, I mean, you probably have to do a little bit to kill him, because he fell 9 floors and it took a little while. It took 3 hours, but he did eventually get up. So, and now they've got him locked up because they don't know whether or not they should, you know, keep him around because he's infected. And the fact is, Eon Yu is there. I still don't get her circumstances. My best guess has up until this point has been she's overcompensating because she's such a dick in this episode. She kind of was dickish before, but it's like she kind of goes out of her way to be extra dickish and just very childish considering her circumstances. My thing up till now has always been like I think she's overcompensating because we see like cracks in that armor, like with Dansuk killing the actress like in episode 2 and her getting covered in blood and her like the way she was panicked wiping the blood off in the like mirror in the sink and then just being by herself last episode and cutting up the dress. It's like it's something there. There's something there where she is just pure overcompensation. She's trying to act like she's so okay when she's not, like poking fun at the some of the other survivors because they're like trying to figure out, well, they said this wasn't an infection, that it was human desire, but it's like, yeah, she's poking fun, but like, oh, it could be anyone. I wonder who's next, and kind of was giddy about it. She even drew back that point. She brought up that point again that she, when she was around Hugh, and she was like, "Oh yeah, remember how I told you don't kill yourself in front of other people and how much of an inconvenience it is?" But I guess you kind of kept to that because yeah, you fell, but you're still alive, so you didn't go through with it. Then there's also the situation where she was starting shit with Jisoo because Jisoo tried to be kind and give the woman whose daughter died last episode slash this episode and give her candy, and she's like, "Oh, you think that's going to like make her feel better? You did that just to make you feel better." And Jisoo's like, "Oh, so you're the crazy bitch? Like, go ahead and just be the crazy bitch." And it's like, why is she being such an asshole? Like I said, I think it's just maybe she was also a little upset because for her, maybe she had a similar situation where people, more in particular adults, like placated her by like giving her like their apologies, but it didn't really mean anything. Like we don't know enough to know once again what her beef is with her brother, but it must connect with why she's kind of a dick, and I'm assuming that all connects to why she wasn't why she kind of got kicked out of school and why she felt the need to cut up that like ballet or ballerina dress she had, because it's something about the past she doesn't want to remember, which I mean everyone's kind of drowning in their own past in a lot of regards in this episode. But it's just, like I said, she kind of goes out of her way. She's trying to be a little playful with Sang-wook, but he ignores her, and she's like moron and flicks him off. She does have that cool moment with So Keon when she's like, oh yeah, like kind of signed like basically fuck bastards like you or something like that, and she's like, no, I was just saying you're the best. So that's kind of a cool moment for her where it's like, your dickishness shines through in a positive light in this particular situation. But in other situation, you seem like a prick. And I'm trying to understand why you're like that. So interesting, too, because she's having this journey while her brother's just like self-loathing right now. Because no one believes he's a good leader. He felt regret in that situation because he is the one that told that woman, hey, let's survive for now and we'll find your daughter later. And it's like, if I had let her go, maybe she would have died, but at the very least, her daughter might still be alive. Maybe they could have come back. Like, I made this unilateral decision. To be fair, everyone else backed her at the time. So, I mean, backed him at the time. And it's just, he has such regret and just being covered in that blood. And it's just the regret of how I handled this. Because he kind of stepped up in the first episode to kind of help be the hero. Him and Kyung, when they pushed that thing back. But now it's like you're on the opposite side, and no one in the group is kind of fucking with you like that anymore. Especially Yi Kyeon, because she came back from her circumstances. That was pretty. I thought I saw 2 cocoons. So I'm like, oh, is there someone else tied up down there? And even then they're probably already dead. But I thought that's the cocoon it was starting with. But no, it started with hers. But she had already slipped out, climbing through the vents, trying to get away. There was a pretty impressive move where she like climbed up and basically spread herself out so that even if the thing looked up, maybe from the angle, it wouldn't be able to see her. But ended up escaping, not before the thing like freaking webbed her neck and tried to hang her and draw her back up. But luckily she cut herself free. I'm surprised the creature just gave up. But I guess to be fair, it's like maybe if she's out of the angle that it can't spew its web and it's like, I can't get down because this hole is too small, fine, you're not worth it anymore. I'll go find some other prey. Because my thought was, could it have been the security officer? But I had brought it up last episode. We saw like a humanoid with like a backpack or something and some keys. So he's down there, but like I said, maybe he's still in that transitional period. Because if he went full monster, why would he revert back to his human form? Because once you're going full monster, there's no going back. You don't revert back to a human. Because even the actress, like, even though she transformed a little, she was still in that in between area. She hadn't fully transformed. Just like Hyun, just because Hyun, out of any of them, has had the least amount of transformation because his eyes turned black, but like his body didn't morph like Miss M, who, you know, the woman who baby died like a year ago. She, like, her hands were in the process of transforming, just like the actresses were. So she was a little further along than Hyun, but his state has been a little less than others have been in that transitional period. When Yi Kyung came back, and what was the first thing she did? She punched Hyuk in the stomach. I was like, oh, is it because you found out what he did? Like, is that what you're mad about? It's like, no, she's mad because it's like, you knew that monster was there. I was like, oh, right, he did, didn't he? Because he saw that bastard on the camera, and he didn't say anything to her. So it's like, you sent me there knowing it's in there, and you just didn't say anything. I would have at least been on guard. I still most likely would have done it, but at least I would have been prepared. It's like, but he didn't feel the need to explain that to her. So that's why he's been extra worried. Like, oh, she hasn't gotten back yet. Let's wait, because he's like, he sent her to a death, but he figured out that anyone she'd be the most likely to return. Maybe he thought she had the best chance. Hey, she gets in, gets out. She doesn't have to worry about there being a monster. But he also, it seems, I guess it's supposed to indicate, like, right, he is the I will manipulate people type of situation if need be. I mean, I don't think he's not the worst, because obviously you've got Seokhyun being the piece of shit, like, store owner and douchebag here amongst the group, because he's the one that's like, hey, we should get rid of that kid, but Aeon Hyuk is like, we vote on it, and that way we keep anonymity, because that way you don't know which way anyone voted, because if we all get rid of him, we are all accomplices in murder, because we will be signing his death warrant. Either we're sending him out there to get eaten, so we are responsible for his death, which I think is kind of, and I think even he recognizes the irony behind it, considering, like, well, in his mind, it's like, I signed that woman's daughter's death warrant by not letting her go out there to help her daughter. So, but they vote, and the vote is a split between 8 and 8. 8 to keep him, 8 to cast him out. But then, like, the final vote is void, because the person put circle, they were going to vote yes, but then they X'd out. I can only assume it was Hyun's wife, because he was like, you're going to vote this way, and she was like, no, I didn't vote the other way. Like, I voted with you, honey. We should kick him out. Like, the fact is, because it meant whoever it was changed their vote, I can only assume she would be the one that changed her vote. I'm sure that's why, even more so, why he looked at her first, like, oh, you did this. So it invalidated the vote, because I think it was supposed to symbolize, hey, I changed my vote, but it's like, yeah, you can't make up your mind, so it becomes a null and void vote. So, and just as he's like talking about, like, oh, we got to kick him out, lo and behold, perfect timing, his nose starts bleeding. As I hear you are preaching about kicking him out, now it's like, oh, the shoe is on the other foot now. And I love Hyun shows up, and it's like, hey, like, the fact is, if I vote for us to get kicked out, does that mean I get kicked out, but he does with me? And I love that his eyes shifted black at the time too. It's like, is this what's going to happen? And the old man ends up passing out. So they're both locked up together, and he's asking him, hey, so how'd you keep yourself from transforming? And he's like, really? You're shameless. You were so quick to send me out, but now all of a sudden you want to know, oh, how have I held on to my humanity? How come I haven't transformed into a monster? It's like, pull yourself together. That's all you're getting from me. And it's like, that's all you would get, you piece of shit. See what happens when you suck? You treat people like shit and do shitty things. This is what happens. I also love that we have the lady with the dog. She's the one that's doing the most, dude. Because the lady who lost her daughter, it's like, oh, I don't know what I'd do if I lose Bomb. And Seokhyun is like, his wife is like, it's not the same thing. And she's like, no, it is the same because he's family. She's like, yeah, you don't know what it's like either because you don't have children. And she kind of hesitated. She was like, you're right, which makes me wonder, did she have children at one point in time and just sadly it didn't work out for like medical reasons, whether there's like a miscarriage or maybe. I was about to say an abortion, but I don't know what Korea's stance is on abortions. There's a lot of like international countries. I know we're kind of, it's a divide, like it's not like a unanimous, like everyone's okay. I don't know. I was just curious, like where Korea generally stands on that topic. It was just, so that's because I was about to say, I'm saying that, but like, culturally speaking, I don't know if that's even like something that is, because it could be like heavily frowned upon in Korean society. I don't know. Either way, tangents and all that aside. So I don't know if that was kind of an indication there, or maybe she wanted a family, but Suk-yeon never wanted kids, so she kind of just had to settle with that because she has to go with what he says. I even love that the dog lady called him out during the votes, being like, oh yeah, like you're trying to hit your wife, leave her alone and let her vote as well and do her own thing. And I love that he's such an abusive piece of shit that he like walks up to the dog lady almost like, oh, I'm about to hit you, until Yi Kyung calls him out. It's like, yo, stop it. And then like, it's like, yeah, he wants to pick on women he thinks are weaker than him, but the moment someone else like he believes is stronger than him like talks up, he backed down real quick. Oh yeah, I almost completely forgot we got introduced to some new characters too. I brought this up last episode of like how many people are just like stuck in the rooms and just aren't coming out. And we meet a guy who's journaling a lot. He's talking about, right, this is the 4th day of confinement. He heard about the announcement about the first floor, so he wants to go check it out. It seems like he's sick, and the girl that's with him, Yuri, she's his caretaker of sorts. And so we see them packing up and leaving at the end of the episode. At one point, I think it was near the end of the episode. So it is a situation of they're making their way down. I don't think we know what floor they're on. So, but yeah, there's probably so many people that are either straight up monsters, maybe locked in their apartments, just can't get out for whatever reason, or maybe they're just people hiding out in their apartments. Like, because most of the cast is downstairs in the entrance floor, but we've gotten a few here and there who are, still up there. Like that's the first people we've met to still be up there, like new cast members wise, at least at this point in the show, because everyone else we've known about at least an episode or two, and now it's just like, yeah, probably that's your way of springing up new people. Like, yeah, there's just some people who just stayed in their apartments and just never came out, or once again got monsterfied. Or it could just be a thing of maybe there's just a crap ton of people who were outside of the building when shit hit the fan. That could just as much be a possibility, because it was kind of like during the day ish. So it could have been plenty of people who just never came back to the apartment at that time. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe this is most of the occupants that aren't dead, killed by a monster, or who haven't already become one. Once again, we've only seen like a handful of monsters in totality inside the building. We have our boy Sang-wook finally coming down, and he runs into the guy he had kidnapped. Because that guy was like, he was so fascinated with Hyun because he's like, oh, the guy became a monster. It's like, oh, and he doesn't die. He was so fast. I was like, what the hell are you... Like, I didn't know if he was going to utilize that to his advantage, which he does, but we'll get to that in a second. I love Sang-wook immediately comes to him, and he's like, oh, you're here. He's like, yeah, you said see you again, you son of a bitch, and starts whipping his ass. And he tries running away. And I love that he pretends he's like, oh my God, my nose was bleeding. See, lock me up. I was like, are you that much of a... You're trying to get away. I mean, to be fair, the guy had you taped up and he beat the shit out of you. And he like burned a cigarette on your tongue. It's like, yeah, the guy's wild. But I'm like, I still don't trust this guy. There's something there. So he's about to get locked up. And I love that Jae-hyun was like, stops, is like, wait. Is that really the reason you're going there? Is because you're infected? And Sang-wook shows up to get to him, but Jae-hyun stops him. And so the guy's just happy, and he's over there talking to Hyun. It's like, oh, cool, you became a monster. What does it feel like? Oh, here's something to eat. And Hyun is like, no, I'm good. He's like, what, a monster doesn't need to eat? It's like, well, luckily, he has that food that Jisoo gave him that she took off the dead body. I mean, they say, like, the guy was still warm, so I was about to say, like, it didn't, like, eat... Well, the monster that killed well, tried to kill Hyun by knocking him over the railings, was nearby. We didn't actually get a look at. All we saw were like its red eyes. So, because I was wondering, like, considering the condition of the body, like, I was like, I would have checked for wounds to see if it was actually a monster. But it's like, that's not necessarily enough to really give you any answers unless his body was pierced, like the half chopped off head thing. But then there's like the muscly thing. I mean, we saw what it did to Miss M. It just like kept punching her and was trying to beat her to death, which she would, once very much like Hume, would be dead if it wasn't for that transitional period of being infected. But yeah, he's fascinated with becoming a monster, and it's like, because that way no one will be able to hurt him and kill him. Granted, even if you do, if you unfortunately get killed in that golden hour, you better hope it's not in that golden hour. So, but he's so fascinated with it that I'm like, that's going to become a problem later. And you can see like Song Wook looking at him, and he had taken some keys off of him and was like, did he kidnap someone that was important to Song Wook? And he's not asking for help. He's not letting anyone know who he is. But it's like, I figured because he's the mobster gangster that this guy must be in a rival mob or gang. But it feels like now that he took the keys off of him, and it seems that's pretty significant. I'm like, did he kidnap someone? Is he like a creepo, and he kidnaps someone that's important to you, and he's trying to pretend like he didn't? Were you hired by someone to take care of him? Like I said, you're a gangster, and obviously there's the whole scars all over your body. I haven't really talked about because he's got the burn on his face and his back. Once again, it's interesting too because in the manhwa, not unless it's a different character, but I'm sure it's the same character. To my recollection with the face, he didn't have any scars. So not unless the scars are only on his back, and maybe they added them to his face. And this, I don't know. We also found out there's a good chance that Yi Kyung might be pregnant. I thought that was a neat conversation because the dog lady had to, because she knows everything about everyone that lives in these apartments. I even love her being like, Hyun seems like, she's like, oh, he seems like such a young kid, such a handsome kid. And it's like, right, we can't keep someone in a building just because you think they're handsome. That's not enough of a quality to keep them in here. But she ran her mouth off to Suk Hyun's wife about, hey, yeah, the firefighter Yi Kyung, she is engaged. In fact, her wedding was going to be in like 2 days, but no one knows what happened to her fiance. So that's what the whole phone call situation was about. And she was there trying to comfort her, like, hey, here's some food. And it's like, right, sorry, I didn't mean to stare at your ring, because she now knows the story, so it's a little awkward. But the moment Yi Kyung didn't want to eat anything and her stomach was a little messed up, I was like, are you pregnant? Even, Sukyon's wife ends up picking up on that, ends up giving her the pregnancy test just to make sure. So, kind of the worst time to be pregnant, which is also interesting too, considering whatever Miss M's situation is upstairs in Six bathroom or whatever. So, which also confirms something I'd wondered too. I had brought it up in like episode 2. I was like, do those rooms have bathrooms? Like, it seems like they all do. Like I had brought it up because that whole sequence would cut. So I was like, could it just be that he doesn't have a bathroom? It's like, well, of course he has a bathroom. It's just they just shortened the sequence just for the live action. It's just me going back on that because I was curious whether or not they actually had bathrooms. It makes sense for them to have bathrooms, but I just wasn't sure. Either way, it's a lot of very, very interesting developments. I'm curious to ultimately see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.